long-term low-dose THC administration can reverse age-related decline in the brain by enhancing cognitive abilities and increasing synapse density. Meanwhile, we've got an amazing geeky science, and then I'll get to your calls here. This was research that was done at the University Hospital in Bonn, Germany, and the University of Bonn in collaboration with Hebrew University in Israel. And it was published in ACS Pharmacology and Translation Science, which is a peer-reviewed scientific journal. And one of the things that they know is that there are these receptors in our brains called cannabinoid receptors. These are, receptors are like locks, and the things that fit into them are like keys that go into the lock, and they turn the lock and cause, well, in this case, cause intoxication. You take enough THC and you get high. And that's because these receptors in your brain, fill up with THC and go, whoo-hoo! But it turns out that those receptors, they're called the CB1 receptors, the cannabinoid type 1 receptors. They're quite abundant in the brain, but it appears that they're also linked to brain aging. And that, in fact, one of the concerns about chronic cannabis use is that, filling these receptors on a regular basis with large quantities of cannabinoids may cause them to become less effective over time and lead to a loss of mental acuity and memory and things like that. Well, this research kind of blows that theory up. The researchers wanted to see what would happen if the CB1 receptors were excited by low-dose THC over a long period of time. And now again, this was all done with mice. We haven't seen these studies with humans yet. But what they discovered was that, well, in fact, this is from scipost.org. With this in mind, the researchers set out to explore whether enhancing CB1 activity with low doses of THC could have the opposite effect, potentially reversing some aspects of brain aging. They were particularly interested in how THC might affect mTor, a protein that acts as a central regulator of cell growth, metabolism, and aging. Now, I've told you before about this drug rapamycin that billionaires are taking, and there's companies that sell it over the internet. You've got to have a doctor, they provide a doctor to you, places like agelessrx.com, where you can get rapamycin, and it's supposed to slow down aging, or even in some cases reverse aging, and help people live longer and all this kind of stuff. You can Google it. It's all over the place. There's message boards about it. It's a major kind of fad right now, medical fad. And the way that rapamycin works is by affecting mTor, the mammalian target of rapamycin. mTor is a protein that acts as this central regulator. It controls how rapidly our cells grow. It's basically, if you fast, your body goes out of building mode and into basically regeneration mode, rebuilding mode. Restoring and obviously burning off fat and things like that, but also, kind of rebuilding. And that's mediated by mTor. Fasting triggers this mTor response. So what they discovered was that THC does the same thing in the brain. It triggers an mTor response, which actually reverses brain aging in these mice. The mice were randomly assigned to receive either low-dose THC or a placebo for a period of 28 days, which is a significant part of their lifespan. These are elderly mice. And in the brains of the older mice, the THC treatment led to a temporary but significant increase in mTor activity, particularly in the hippocampus, a region critical for memory and learning. The hippocampus is kind of the one-day scratch pad, and it's the primary locus of activity associated with short-term memory. And they note that this was accompanied by a rise in the levels of key synaptic proteins, the synapses, of course, such as synaptophysin and PSD95, which are essential for the formation and maintenance of synapses. Synapses are the connections between neurons. Furthermore, the researchers observed that THC treatments significantly boosted the metabolic activity of the hippocampus. This would theoretically be a good thing. In Congress and so then they said, now how does this affect the rest of the body? Well, it turns out that it has an mTor hit on fatty tissue as well, only in the opposite direction. Instead of encouraging more fat, it discourages fat. Just listen to this. In contrast to the brain, the adipose tissue, that's your fat, right, under the skin, the adipose tissue of the THC-treated mice showed a decrease in mTOR activity and a reduction in the levels of amino acids and carbohydrate metabolites, similar to what is observed during caloric restriction or intense physical exercise, both of which are known to have anti-aging effects. This reduction was particularly evident after 28 days of treatment, suggesting a dual-phase effect of THC, an initial increase in brain activity, followed by a systematic shift toward energy conservation and reduced metabolic activity. So not only does it make your brain work better, but it causes you to lose weight and live longer, at least if you're an old mouse. They note, in a previous study, researchers from Bonn, in collaboration with a team from Hebrew University in Jerusalem, demonstrated that long-term low-dose THC administration can reverse age-related decline in the brain by enhancing cognitive abilities and increasing synapse density in older mice. Now, the huge caveat here, of course, is that this is a study on mice. It's not a study on other primates. We are a primate. It's certainly not a study on humans. But wild stuff. I mean, this is just, and also we have no idea how, what the dose related relationship would be with humans if we but we're both mammals, if we operate the same way mice do. It might be that high levels of THC, enough to get you high, are actually, produce the opposite effect. Nobody knows. So don't, rush out and buy a bunch of pot right now based on this. But this is fascinating early research into the effect of cannabinoids.